Have you ever asked yourself, not just how long you'll live, but how well? Why do so many bright, capable older adults fade before reaching 75? And could it happen to you? This isn't just about numbers. It's about the silent patterns that steal years before we even notice. Take a long, honest look in the mirror. Do you see the years collecting not just in the lines on your face, but in the heaviness behind your eyes? That's not just age. That's life asking a deeper question. How much vitality is truly left? This video won't fill your head with fear or overwhelm you with statistics. It's about shedding light on a hidden truth. Why so many people never live beyond 75. And more importantly, how you can break free from that fate. You'll want to stay with me until the very end, because we're about to dive into the emotional, social, and physical realities that quietly chip away at your well-being after 75. And more than that, I'll be sharing practical, research-based ways to reclaim your health, purpose, and joy, no matter what your age may be. This is your wake-up call to not just live longer, but to live better, with intention, energy, and meaning. And it starts right now. Before we begin, I'd truly appreciate it if you give this video a like. It helps me reach more people who need these life-saving insights. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. Turn on notifications so you don't miss a single lesson that could change your future. If this message speaks to you, drop a 1 in the comments. If it doesn't, drop a 0 and tell me how I can do better. Your voice matters. Now let's begin. Not with cold data, but with a real, raw glimpse into what aging often looks like behind closed doors. Picture Harold, a 67-year-old retiree who gave 45 years of his life to a factory job. His hands, once thick with strength and calluses, now tremble slightly as he pours his morning coffee. His days used to have rhythm, work, laughter with coworkers, a sense of purpose. But now, time moves slowly, too slowly. His routine is numbing. Flip through TV channels, swallow another handful of pills. Wait. Wait for a phone call that rarely comes. Wait for a knock at the door that comes less and less. Wait for a reason, any reason, to feel alive again. Harold struggles to climb out of bed with anything that even resembles enthusiasm. His mornings are slow, heavy, and void of purpose. One overcast afternoon, he slumps into his worn recliner, gazing blankly through the window at a world that feels distant, like it has simply moved on without him. In a voice so faint it nearly disappears, he whispers, "I don't think anyone would notice if I didn't wake up tomorrow." His words cut deep. And the heartbreaking truth? Harold's experience is far from rare. It's not just one isolated case tucked away in a forgotten nursing home. It's a quiet epidemic, the daily reality for countless older adults who feel unseen, unheard, and unloved. The reasons many people don't live well past 75 have little to do with the ticking of a clock or the wrinkles on their skin. Aging itself isn't the enemy. The true causes run far deeper. Emotional wounds, social disconnection, and a sense of personal loss that erodes the will to live. It's the grief of losing lifelong companions, the disappearance of one's identity, and the crushing silence of loneliness. Add to that the creeping decline from overmedication, poor nutrition, and the soul-crushing feeling of becoming invisible in your own story. Sure, science proudly boasts about longer life expectancy. The numbers look promising. People are living into their 80s and beyond. But here's the real question. What kind of life are they living? Are those extra years filled with love, movement, purpose, and connection? Or are they filled with endless waiting rooms, passive afternoons in front of the television, and a growing sense of being forgotten. The harsh truth is that most older adults don't pass suddenly from one dramatic event. It's not always a heart attack, a stroke, or a fall. Instead, they fade gradually, day by day, through 1,000 subtle declines that quietly build up over time. And society, rather than fighting it, shrugs it off and calls it just aging. But these declines are not a natural law. They're not destiny. Many are preventable, many are reversible, and nearly all of them are tied to how we treat, or fail to treat, people once they cross that invisible line at 75. Take movement, for example. Movement is life. But many older adults begin to slow down, not because they physically can't move, but because no one encourages them to keep moving. No one tells them why it matters. Society sends a silent message. You've earned your rest. It's okay to sit now. And so they sit. Muscles weaken, quietly fading beneath thinning skin. Bones become fragile, and the spark that once drove them to wake up with energy begins to dim. Joints begin to stiffen. Aches and pains creep in and never quite leave. We're quick to label it all as old age, but more often it's something far simpler: inactivity. A gradual, almost unnoticed retreat from movement, from nature, from the living, breathing rhythm of life itself. After turning 75, many older adults stop walking regularly. Not just long, steady walks through the park or around the block. Even the short, routine strolls to the mailbox or corner market become rare. The once natural act of putting one foot in front of the other fades. But here's the truth. Walking is life. In the most literal, physiological sense. Each step doesn't just carry the body forward. It pumps oxygen-rich blood to the organs, delivers nutrients to vital tissues, supports digestion, sharpens the mind, and helps regulate blood sugar. It's one of the body's most natural antidepressants. Walking helps maintain emotional balance and fights off feelings of hopelessness or isolation. It also acts as a buffer, even a defense, against cognitive decline. Modern studies are clear. Regular physical activity, even light or moderate walking, significantly reduces the risk of dementia, heart disease, and depression. Yet when movement stops, the body begins to shut down, slowly, silently. Blood flow weakens, digestion struggles, mental clarity fades. The person doesn't vanish in a single dramatic moment, but rather they slowly fade, one motionless day at a time. And while movement is one piece of the puzzle, another crisis hides in plain sight: nutrition. Let's talk about food, or more accurately, the absence of nourishing food. For those over 75, nutrition isn't just helpful, it's essential to survival and quality of life. But somehow, it gets overlooked. It's pushed aside by the complexity of medications or the convenience of ready-made meals. Many older adults don't eat to nourish their bodies anymore. They eat what's easy, what won't upset their stomach, or what requires the least amount of effort. Prepackaged foods, canned soups, toast, and often, that's all. Their appetite may have dulled, blunted by grief, isolation, or medication side effects. Cooking, for one, can feel meaningless after decades of preparing meals for a spouse or family. Grocery shopping? It becomes a daunting task when mobility is limited, energy is low, or memory begins to slip. For many seniors, limited mobility or the lack of transportation makes even a simple trip to the grocery store feel impossible. But here's what often goes unnoticed. The body doesn't just need calories to function. It needs real nourishment. Micronutrients, hydration, natural fiber, quality protein. These are the building blocks that preserve muscle strength, fuel organ function, and keep the immune system resilient. When these essentials are missing, chronic undernourishment sets in silently. It doesn't announce itself with drama, but slowly and steadily, it weakens the heart, overworks the kidneys, burdens the liver, and makes it harder for the body to fight off infection. For a body that has already weathered decades of stress, illness, and wear, operating on nutritional fumes is a dangerous gamble. And yet, countless older adults are doing exactly that, running on empty, day after day. The consequences are both subtle and severe. Malnutrition in older adults is directly linked to a higher risk of infection, delayed wound healing, and worsening cognitive decline. So when someone over 75 seems suddenly confused, frail, or frequently ill, the question must be asked: is it really age, or is it the result of a starving, forgotten body? But if nutrition is the silent physical killer, then unprocessed emotional pain may be the invisible weight that breaks the spirit. This is, perhaps, the most heartbreaking piece of all. After 75, almost everyone has endured profound loss. A spouse who slept beside them for a lifetime, a sibling who shared their childhood memories, a best friend who made them laugh even on the worst days, and in the most devastating cases, a child who should have outlived them. Grief doesn't knock loudly. It builds slowly, almost respectfully, stacking itself brick by brick around the heart. And if that grief isn't acknowledged, spoken aloud, or gently guided toward healing, it calcifies. It hardens into a silent depression that seeps into every corner of a person's life. Depression in older adults is tragically misunderstood. It's often waved off as moodiness, irritability, or just being old. But the reality is far more serious. Untreated emotional pain disturbs sleep patterns, weakens the immune system, dulls the appetite, and places chronic strain on the heart. And behind it all, one of the most underestimated threats to longevity is quietly spreading: loneliness. Medical research now recognizes loneliness among seniors as a health crisis, just as lethal as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. After 75, many older adults spend days, even weeks, without a single meaningful conversation. No one calls to ask, "How are you really doing?" No one knocks just to say, "You crossed my mind today." What happens to the body when the soul feels unseen, when connection fades and the heart feels forgotten? The answer is as profound as it is tragic. The body follows the spirit. When a person no longer feels alive on the inside, the body gradually begins to reflect that emptiness. Organs slow, resilience weakens, and the will to keep going quietly slips away. When the human spirit begins to feel invisible, the body slowly follows. Immune cells lose their strength, healing slows to a crawl, and death doesn't arrive with drama or fanfare. It slips in quietly, like a guest who's been waiting silently in the corner for years. But one of the most overlooked causes behind this slow decline is something far less clinical: the loss of purpose. After 75, society stops giving roles to older adults. No one asks them to mentor, to share their stories, to weigh in with the wisdom that only decades of living can bring. They become invisible, not because they have nothing to offer, but because no one bothers to ask. After spending a lifetime as a teacher, a builder, a mother, a caretaker, a leader, many seniors feel like their chapter has ended, that their usefulness is behind them, and so they begin to wait. Not to live, to wait for the end. This mindset, waiting to die, is one of the most dangerous forces working against longevity. The human brain doesn't just need nutrients or oxygen, it needs hope. It needs to believe that tomorrow might bring something meaningful, a conversation, a goal, a reason to smile. When that hope disappears, the mind doesn't simply age, it shuts down. Not because of age, but because of disconnection. Because no one reminded it to keep dreaming. This is how cognitive decline often begins. Not in a doctor's office, but in a quiet home, where time stretches endlessly and nothing interrupts the silence. It's not age that welcomes in dementia. It's disuse. It's despair. And let's not overlook something equally vital: identity. For decades, people knew exactly who they were. a nurse who cared for strangers, a business owner who built something from the ground up, a father who raised strong children, a singer who once performed under bright lights. These identities shaped every day, gave direction, confidence, and self-worth. But when retirement takes away the title, when adult children move far away, when a beloved partner passes on, those identities begin to vanish. The world no longer reflects who they were, and it doesn't offer a replacement. So the question becomes not, what do I do next? But rather, who am I now? This question isn't philosophical for seniors. It's survival. Without a clear sense of identity, purpose starts to fade. Without purpose, motivation dries up. And slowly, energy and vitality dim. That phrase you hear so often, "I'm just tired all the time." It's not just physical, it's emotional. It's the fatigue of waking up without a reason to face the day. The spark that once ignited their mornings starts to flicker. Then, dim. Then, for many, it fades into silence. If you're still with me and these insights resonate with you, take a moment and type the number 1 in the comments. It lets me know that you're here, that this message matters, and that together, we're choosing awareness, not silence. Thank you for staying with me. I truly value your time and attention. Now, let's turn our focus to something that often hides in plain sight, the burden of over-medication. After the age of 75, most seniors are prescribed not 1, not 2, but 5 or more medications. There are pills for blood pressure, medications for cholesterol, tablets to ease pain, capsules to induce sleep, diuretics, antidepressants. The list grows longer with each passing year. While these medications can be life-saving when prescribed and monitored correctly, the reality is far more troubling. Too often, these drugs are overprescribed, improperly combined, or taken without full understanding. The body becomes a testing ground, with no clear guide. The side effects begin to pile up, quietly and relentlessly, like unopened letters left untouched on the counter. Fatigue creeps in. Nausea becomes common. Dizziness strikes at random. Appetite fades. And little by little, energy disappears. Each of these effects may seem minor alone, but together, they weigh heavily on the body and mind. And what happens next? Falls become more frequent. Recovery from even a small injury takes longer. Each stumble, whether physical or emotional, chips away at a body already working overtime just to function. This isn't just inconvenient, it's dangerous. This phenomenon, known as polypharmacy, is a recognized medical risk factor. The simultaneous use of multiple medications has been directly linked to higher rates of hospitalization and even early death in older adults. Yet, despite the mounting evidence, it's rarely discussed with the seriousness it deserves. And while over-medication steals vitality during the day, another thief robs it in the night: poor sleep. Many seniors over 75 struggle silently with sleep. They wake too early, toss and turn through the night, or never feel truly rested. It's easy to assume this is simply part of aging. But let me be clear, it's not. Sleep is not a luxury, it is a necessity, and poor sleep acts like a wrecking ball to every system in the body. Lack of quality rest affects everything. Memory becomes foggy. Mood turns low and irritable. Energy drains away. The immune system weakens. The risk of heart disease and falls sharply increases. But what causes these sleepless nights? Sometimes it's chronic pain. Other times, it's the medication itself. It could be anxiety, daytime napping, or even something as subtle as caffeine or screen time that confuses the body's internal rhythms. Yet more often than not, sleep is disturbed by something deeper, a lack of engagement during the day. When someone spends the day without stimulation, connection, or purpose, the mind doesn't settle easily at night. It turns in circles, restless, unanchored. The truth is, fixing sleep isn't optional. It's fundamental to surviving and thriving beyond 75. And beneath it all, often overlooked yet powerful, lies a final challenge: the weight of self-neglect. Here's a truth many don't speak out loud, one that's difficult but necessary to acknowledge. Many seniors don't feel like they're allowed to prioritize themselves. After decades of giving, raising children, supporting spouses, building careers, serving their communities, they've spent a lifetime pouring their energy outward. And once those roles fade or disappear, they're left with a deep uncertainty. How do I care for myself? Am I even supposed to? They've been caregivers, not receivers. So when the time comes to focus inward, on their own well-being, joy, and dreams, they hesitate. They don't always know how to say, "My health still matters. My life is still meaningful. I deserve to feel alive." And society doesn't help. It whispers that they've earned their rest, tells them to slow down, to accept the aches, the isolation, the quiet fading of vitality, as if it's just the natural order of things. But that belief, as deeply ingrained as it is not the truth. Decline isn't a guarantee. It's a cultural expectation, one that we've all silently accepted, and one we have the power to reverse. Yes, this reality can feel heavy, but inside that weight lies a powerful opportunity, a chance to rewrite the story of aging. What if we stopped seeing 75 as the end of the path and instead recognized it as a turning point, a new chapter filled with possibility? What if we dared to rebuild hope, strength, and connection from the inside out? Imagine this: looking someone over 75 in the eyes and saying, "You're not done. You're still needed. Your voice, your story, your presence, it still matters." What if we reimagined our communities as places that honor aging not with pity, but with purpose? Where walking isn't just exercise, but a daily chance to reconnect, with fresh air, neighbors, sunlight, and a sense of belonging. Where older adults step outside and feel the world welcome them back in. Picture neighborhoods that prioritize nutrition, delivering not just food, but fresh, nutrient-rich meals, teaching seniors how to cook for one with joy, not loneliness. Meals made with care, not just convenience. Food that nourishes the body and reminds them they're worth the effort. What if doctors prescribed fewer pills and more real conversations, treating emotional pain as urgently as physical pain? What if they asked not only, "How's your blood pressure?" but also, "How's your spirit? Who are you connecting with lately? What brings you joy?" And perhaps most powerfully of all, imagine a world where family, friends, and volunteers reached out consistently, not out of obligation, but out of love, because they understood that sometimes one simple conversation can be a lifeline, a reminder that someone still sees them, still values them, still believes in their tomorrow. Imagine a world where we create roles for seniors, not out of pity, but out of recognition. Mentors, storytellers, gardeners, advisors. Because the truth is, their wisdom is a living, breathing resource we simply can't afford to waste. Harold's story doesn't have to end in that recliner, in that heavy silence, in that moment of hopelessness. It could end somewhere else entirely. Picture him walking slowly but steadily toward a community garden, soil on his hands, a smile on his face. Picture him sharing a laugh with an old friend on a sunny bench, teaching a young man how to fix a broken radio, offering advice to someone who still has much to learn. It could end with him feeling alive, feeling needed, feeling seen. But that kind of ending, a hopeful, meaningful one, doesn't just happen. It requires action, not next year, not someday, today. Because 75 isn't the end. It's not even the beginning of the end, unless we decide to treat it that way. In a world that often celebrates youth and speed, those over 75 are left wrestling with a quiet guilt. a subtle shame that arises the moment they even think about investing in themselves, in their health, their dreams, their happiness. Society has sent a message, loud or soft, that to care for oneself at this stage is somehow selfish, indulgent, or worse, pointless. So what happens? The weight of time starts to feel like a verdict. It's too late now, they think. That chapter has closed. They carry the belief that their moment has passed, that their needs are no longer relevant. But let's stop right here and speak a truth that cuts through the noise. You are not too old to matter. You are not too old to heal. You are not too old to begin again. These words are not empty encouragement. They are a lifeline, a call to rise, to reawaken. They are a declaration that has pulled countless people back from the edge and helped them reclaim purpose, identity, and vitality. For some, hearing this is like oxygen to a dwindling flame. It reignites the spirit. It breathes life into the possibility that yes, even now, they can live fully. But if we're going to talk about revival, we must also face one of the most overlooked and devastating realities for people over 75, the erosion of community. The human brain, no matter the age, is wired for connection. It doesn't just desire companionship, it thrives on it. From shared meals to belly laughs, from deep conversations to the simple act of being asked, "How was your day?" Connection is essential to life. And this truth doesn't fade with age. In fact, the older we get, the more deeply we need to feel that someone sees us, hears us, values us. So what happens when that connection disappears? This deep need for connection only intensifies as life circumstances begin to shift. Retirement, for instance, while often seen as a reward, can unintentionally cut seniors off from one of their most consistent sources of social interaction, the workplace. Where once there were daily conversations, shared breaks, and a sense of purpose tied to professional identity, now there is silence. No morning greetings, no shared laughter, just space. Friendships that once felt unbreakable may quietly drift apart. Some friends relocate, others pass away. And family, though still loving, may become distant, wrapped up in their own busy routines, not out of neglect, but out of life's constant demands. Even those sacred places of community, churches, senior centers, local events, can become harder to access due to transportation issues, limited mobility, or the fear of going alone. And so, isolation sets in. Slowly, almost invisibly at first. A missed lunch here, a quiet weekend there. Then, one day, begins to look just like the next. Days stretch into weeks, and weeks blur into a kind of emotional fog. What starts as occasional loneliness can quietly spiral into disconnection, despair, and even illness. It's important to recognize that loneliness is not just a feeling. It has real biological effects on the body. Mounting research has shown that chronic isolation raises inflammation levels, elevates blood pressure, weakens the immune system, and places significant strain on the heart. It's not just emotional pain, it's a physiological burden. And over time, that burden accelerates physical decline. It's no coincidence that seniors who live alone, with limited social contact, tend to experience more rapid health deterioration than those who remain connected to vibrant, supportive communities. The difference isn't just emotional, it's cellular. That's why programs and spaces like senior centers, walking clubs, garden groups, choirs, and book circles are so much more than simple recreation. They are lifelines. They create environments where connection flourishes, where joy returns, where individuals are reminded that they are not alone. In these places, something extraordinary happens. A shared story sparks a laugh. A walk leads to a new friendship. A garden becomes a space not just to grow vegetables, but to grow purpose again. These spaces help remind older adults that their presence matters, that they're still part of something larger, a community, a living story that still needs them. If you're still with me and these words resonate, I'd love to know. Drop the number 3 in the comments. It tells me you're still here, still engaged, still choosing to believe that your life, or the life of someone you love, is worth investing in. Thank you for spending this time with me. But before we end, let's take one more honest, powerful look at what truly determines how we age, and how we can change the narrative together. Now let's speak plainly about a wound that runs even deeper than loneliness: the feeling of becoming invisible. After decades of showing up, for their families, for their jobs, for their communities, many older adults suddenly find themselves overlooked. As if all those years of contribution slowly begin to fade into the background of a world they once helped build. In grocery store aisles, they're brushed past, not out of malice, but as if they're simply not there. At family gatherings, conversations swirl all around them, full of energy and laughter, yet rarely pause to ask, "What do you think? What would you like to do this weekend?" Their voice is no longer part of the room, and too often, no one even notices. In doctors' offices, appointments are rushed, concerns are cut short, questions go unanswered. No one takes the time to ask, "What matters to you?" Or, "How are you really feeling?" Their insight, once valued, now gets filtered through someone else's summary. And over time, this lack of recognition doesn't just chip away at dignity, it chips away at identity. Because when no one sees you, it becomes harder to see yourself. Day by day, their reflection feels more like a memory than a person. They become ghosts in their own lives, not from illness or age, but from the slow erosion of being acknowledged. And this invisibility has very real consequences. When someone begins to feel like a burden, like their voice is too small or too inconvenient, they stop speaking up. Early symptoms of illness? They go unmentioned. That nagging ache, that troubling forgetfulness, the medication that's making them dizzy. It stays hidden, because no one seemed to care last time. Family members, even the most loving ones, may miss the small changes. Healthcare providers, overwhelmed and rushed, might overlook what would have once raised a red flag. Appointments are missed, prescriptions go unfilled. Small concerns, ones that could have been addressed early, grow quietly into crises. And that's how it happens. The gradual unraveling, not because the body fails, but because no one noticed in time. But here's where hope enters. Because the moment someone begins to feel seen again, truly seen, something remarkable takes place. It doesn't take grand gestures. Sometimes all it takes is a moment, a question, a look in the eyes that says, "I see you. You matter." When a person is genuinely acknowledged, when their story is heard, their voice welcomed, their presence valued, they begin to lift their head. Their shoulders square. Their tone shifts from hesitant to certain. They begin slowly to reclaim themselves. And in that reclaiming, healing begins. When someone begins to feel truly seen, when they sense that their presence still matters, something powerful happens. They start caring for themselves with renewed intention. Their food choices improve. Their posture lifts. Their eyes begin to meet yours again with clarity and spark. That's not just emotion. That's biology responding to the medicine of hope. At age 75, 80, or beyond, hope isn't a luxury. It's a lifeline. It's often more powerful than any pill behind the pharmacy counter. It fuels motivation, it renews purpose, and it literally helps the body heal. To those caring for an aging parent, grandparent, or even a neighbor, please know this: you are part of that lifeline. Your presence matters more than you think. The way you slow down and listen without rushing or interrupting, it brings dignity back. The way you ask thoughtful questions, involve them in decisions, or simply sit beside them at the dinner table. These aren't just kind gestures. These are acts of healing. acts of restoration. They remind someone, gently but powerfully, that they're still here, still capable, still a part of this world. And caregivers, your role is sacred. You may not always see the impact right away, but believe this: every patient word, every small moment of inclusion, every simple act of care creates ripples that travel far deeper than you imagine. Now, let's circle back to something vital: movement. Because if there's one thing we often underestimate in aging, it's the body's enduring need and ability to move. The human body was never designed for stillness. It was built to move, to stretch, to engage with the physical world. And that truth doesn't vanish with age. In fact, for people over 75, movement becomes even more essential, not for competition, but for continuity. Not for strength alone, but for survival. Movement in later years doesn't mean running marathons or hitting the gym. It means gentle, purposeful activity that supports flexibility, balance, circulation, and emotional well-being. A short walk around the block each day can dramatically improve mood and blood flow. A few minutes of stretching or a slow Tai Chi session can help maintain balance and reduce stiffness. Dancing to a favorite old song in the living room isn't just joyful, it's medicine for the heart. Even everyday movements, like tending a garden, climbing a short flight of stairs, or simply standing up and sitting back down multiple times, can build essential leg strength. And that's no small thing, because leg strength is key to preventing falls. Falls are one of the leading causes of hospitalization and long-term decline in older adults. They can lead to serious complications, infections, loss of independence, even permanent relocation to care facilities. But here's what we forget: falls are not an inevitable part of aging. Balance can be trained. Strength can be rebuilt. Exercises like standing on one leg, using a balance board, or practicing basic yoga poses can dramatically reduce fall risk, while also boosting confidence and energy. So the question is, what if just a few intentional movements each day could give someone back their independence? Muscles don't just weaken because of age, they weaken from lack of use. But even after 75, muscle strength can absolutely be rebuilt. Resistance bands, bodyweight exercises, and gentle strength training can help restore function and stability. The key is consistency, not intensity. Just like a tree that's weathered decades of storms can still grow new branches, the aging body can regain strength, if we give it the chance. The environment matters too. Our homes, once sources of comfort, can become dangerous if we're not paying attention. Simple adjustments make a world of difference, removing throw rugs that catch the toes, improving lighting in hallways or stairwells, and installing grab bars in bathrooms. These aren't overreactions or signs of fear. They're quiet acts of wisdom. They're about preserving freedom through thoughtful preparation. And while we're speaking of strength, let's not forget the brain. The brain, just like any other muscle, requires challenge to stay strong. Sadly, many older adults fall into passive routines after 75, watching endless hours of television, doing tasks that require little mental effort. At first glance, it may seem like rest, but in reality, it's mental stillness. And over time, stillness becomes stagnation. Yet neuroscience continues to show us something powerful. The brain remains plastic. It can form new connections, build new neural pathways, even in the later stages of life. But only if we give it something to work with. Reading novels, playing a musical instrument, learning a few words in a new language, solving crossword puzzles, journaling thoughts, or attending a community lecture. These aren't just hobbies. They're powerful tools, investments in mental longevity. The opposite is also true. Passive screen time, especially for hours on end, doesn't just fail to stimulate. It accelerates mental decline. It's a slow erosion masked as relaxation. The brain craves challenge, and when we deny it that, we invite decay. And at the center of all of this, the physical movement, the social connection, the nutrition, the mental engagement, lies one essential question. What are you living for? This isn't a philosophical exercise. It's a practical, urgent question. Every person, no matter the age, needs a reason to rise in the morning, a spark, a purpose, something that says, today still matters. It doesn't have to be big, it just has to be real. Maybe it's a grandchild's laughter, a tomato garden waiting to be watered, a faith that brings peace, a cause worth showing up for, a story that still needs to be told, or simply being a source of encouragement to a friend who's struggling. Without a why, the how becomes heavy. Life without purpose becomes motion without meaning. So to those over 75, and to everyone who loves someone in that season, this isn't just a warning. It's a sacred invitation. An urgent reminder that age does not determine vitality. The number on your birthday cake doesn't define your value. It doesn't define your contribution. And it certainly doesn't define your future. Your spirit is still here, not by accident, but with purpose. You are here for a reason, and the world still needs your story, your wisdom, and your voice. But in the quiet moments, often late at night or in the stillness of an empty room, many older adults confront a deeply unsettling question. Is this it? Is this how it ends? It's rarely spoken aloud, rarely shared, even with those closest. But it lingers, quietly, like an unanswered prayer, echoing in the background of daily life. How we respond to that question shapes everything. It determines whether we lean toward despair or lean back into life. And here's what often lies beneath it: grief. Not just the grief of losing a partner or a lifelong friend, but the more private, unspoken grief. The grief of losing pieces of yourself, dimming eyesight, fading strength, the inability to drive. Shaky hands that once built, wrote, or held loved ones with confidence. The familiar faces that are no longer around. These are real, human losses, and they deserve to be mourned, not ignored. Yet society rarely acknowledges this kind of loss. It moves forward with noise and speed, leaving seniors to carry these changes in silence. The world tells them to stay strong or be grateful, but rarely does it pause long enough to say, it's okay to grieve, because it is. It's okay to grieve the person you used to be, the roles you've outgrown, the abilities you've had to let go. But here's the other truth. It's also possible to become someone new, even at 76, 82, or 89. Growth doesn't end at retirement. Reinvention doesn't have an age limit. Transformation is always possible, not by erasing the past, but by building something meaningful from where you are now. The most resilient people aren't those who never lose. They are the ones who keep moving forward, despite loss, who continue to choose life with a quiet, stubborn strength that refuses to fade. If you're still watching and still finding value in these lessons, I'd love to know. Drop the number 3 in the comments below. It lets me know you're still here with me on this journey. Thank you for sharing your valuable time with me today. But before we close, let's confront one more painful truth. Society often sends the wrong message to those over 75. It tells you to shrink, to stay quiet, to step aside. Youth is idolized. Speed and energy are worshipped. And almost everything in media and marketing is aimed at the young, while the depth, nuance, and quiet brilliance of older age is overlooked. What happens next? Many seniors begin to internalize that message. They start to believe that they are a burden, that their needs are bothersome. They stop asking for help. They stop sharing opinions. They begin to vanish, not because they're fading, but because the world has stopped inviting them to the table. They stop asking for help. They stop raising their voices. They stop dreaming, not because they've given up, but because somewhere along the way, no one told them they were still allowed to want more. So let this moment be your permission slip. You are allowed to want more. You are allowed to feel joy at 78. You are allowed to wake up with purpose at 85. You are allowed to rewrite your story at 90. You are allowed to laugh, loud and full, to chase after your dreams, to demand respect, and to live boldly. Aging should never mean fading. It should mean growing, just in a different way. Let's talk now about something that's often brushed aside in conversations about aging: nutrition. It may not be dramatic or flashy, but it is foundational. And yet, it's often quietly neglected. Many older adults eat less, not by choice, but because their appetite fades. Cooking becomes exhausting, or they no longer have someone to share meals with. Food becomes routine. Basic. Toast and tea. Canned soup. A few crackers here and there. But food is not just fuel. Food is medicine, and its importance only grows with age. Protein becomes essential to preserve muscle mass. Leafy greens help protect the brain. Omega-3s support heart function. Calcium keeps bones strong and resilient. And hydration? It's the silent hero, keeping organs regulated, digestion steady, and skin supple. So why then does proper nutrition feel so out of reach? The barriers are real: fixed incomes, food deserts, physical fatigue, or simply the lack of motivation to cook for one. But the consequences are just as real. Poor nutrition leads to low energy, weak balance, poor immune function, and higher vulnerability to illness. The good news? Small, intentional choices can create massive change. A protein smoothie in the morning, a bowl of fresh berries, a colorful plate of beans and sautéed greens. These aren't indulgences. They're necessities. Every nutrient you give your body is also a message to your spirit. You're worth taking care of. And while the body responds to what we feed it, the mind and heart also demand nourishment, especially the wounds we try to forget. Emotional pain that's been buried for decades can resurface after 75. Why? Because life slows down. There are fewer distractions and more time for reflection. That silence often brings up old grief, regrets never voiced, betrayals never healed, family rifts never mended. These aren't just thoughts. They live in the body. They show up as anxiety, high blood pressure, insomnia, digestive trouble. And when left unaddressed, they don't just steal peace. They quietly corrode health and drain away hope. So what do we do with the pain we never named? Healing is possible, even later in life, even after years of silence. It begins with honesty, with a conversation, with the courage to speak a truth that's been buried. Whether through therapy, prayer, writing, meditation, or a long overdue talk with someone you once loved deeply, the path to emotional healing remains open. There is something powerful about allowing the heart to release what it has held for too long. A tear shed, a story told, a truth spoken aloud. These moments lighten not just the heart, but also the body. Tension softens, breath deepens, energy returns. And over time, the spirit begins to rise again. Because many older adults do not die from disease alone. They succumb to something quieter, heavier. The weight of unresolved emotional pain. Pain that, when carried too long, wears the body down. Addressing it isn't just therapeutic. It can be life-saving. At the core of every human being, young or old, is the need to feel needed. This desire does not fade with time. In fact, it may grow stronger. After decades of giving, raising families, building communities, working tirelessly, many seniors are left wondering, do I still matter? Is there anything left for me to offer? The answer, unequivocally, is yes. You are still needed. Your wisdom, your humor, your patience, your resilience, these are not leftovers from another life. They are gifts this world still desperately needs. Younger generations may have access to endless information, but information isn't wisdom. Wisdom can't be Googled. It must be lived. It must be shared. And that's where you come in. Some cultures embrace this truth. In many parts of the world, elders are seen as guides, storytellers, cultural anchors. They're honored not despite their age, but because of it. They are trusted to carry the stories of where we've been and to help guide where we're going. Unfortunately, in much of the modern Western world, the opposite has become common. Seniors are sidelined, forgotten, spoken over. And in that forgetting, something is lost. Not just for them, but for all of us. Because when a society stops listening to its elders, it stops listening to itself. This reality may feel heavy, but within it, there's hope. Not the kind that denies difficulty, but the kind that offers direction. Within this quiet crisis lies a powerful opportunity to create spaces where older adults don't merely exist, they thrive. Imagine what's possible when we invest in clubs that welcome every age, mentorship programs that pair wisdom with youth, or community councils where seniors' voices shape local decisions. Intergenerational projects can bring back a sense of belonging, of relevance, of purpose. These aren't just social experiments. They're reminders that our elders are not peripheral. They are the roots of society, anchoring it in wisdom, memory, and stability. And yet, even as these opportunities open, another quiet fear grows, the fear of the end. After 75, thoughts of mortality naturally surface more often. But what truly unsettles many isn't death itself. It's the fear of dying without meaning, without closure, without connection, without having said the things that mattered most. What's the antidote? Create meaning now. Not tomorrow, not someday. Now. Pick up the phone and say, "I love you," even if you haven't said it in years. Write a letter to your grandchild. Share a recipe from your childhood. Tell a story from your youth that no one else knows. Sing a song that someone will carry in their heart long after you're gone. These small acts may seem ordinary, but they are legacies. They are echoes of your life that ripple outward in quiet, beautiful ways. And while we speak often of emotional needs, there is another kind of nourishment often neglected: human touch. Many seniors can go weeks, even months, without a hug, a handshake, or the simple comfort of a hand gently resting on their shoulder. Yet touch is not a luxury. It's a biological necessity. It releases oxytocin, reduces stress hormones, supports immune function, and softens loneliness. A massage, a warm embrace, holding a pet, or just resting your hand in someone else's. These simple, tactile moments have the power to revive the spirit in ways words never could. And this brings us to the core of everything: hope. Not blind optimism, not denial, but a grounded, rational belief in what is still possible. Hope, especially in later life, is a powerful response to the miracle of still being here. If you are 75, 85, or even 95, you are still here, and that means your story is still being written. This isn't the final chapter. This is a legacy in motion. The narrative that most people can't live past 75 in health, dignity, and joy. It can be rewritten, but not just by doctors or policies. It begins with culture, with communities that care, with systems that support, with family members who choose to engage, not just assist. Because aging isn't a slow decline, it's a second season. A time not to chase youth, but to embrace the power, the beauty, and the unmatched richness of age. The power of reflection, the power of resilience, the power of being fully, unapologetically alive, right now. The wisdom you carry, the power of perspective earned through decades of storms and seasons, is something this world still desperately needs. To every senior hearing these words, let this be clear: you are not done. You are not invisible. You are not broken. And you are most certainly not irrelevant. You are a story still unfolding, a song still playing, a light that continues to shine, steady, warm, and full of meaning. And to those who love someone in their later years, your role is sacred. You are their witness, their anchor, their reminder. See them, hear them, sit beside them, share meals, laugh often, hold their hands and listen deeply. Remind them again and again that they matter, that their voice still has weight, that their life is still a gift unfolding, moment by moment. Together, we can ensure that the years after 75 are not a slow fading, but a vibrant, rich, and purposeful chapter. A time when every older adult is seen, heard, valued, and celebrated, not just for what they've done, but for who they are right now and all they still offer. Thank you for walking this meaningful journey with us. A journey through the truth about why so many lives seem to dim before 75, and more importantly, how they can burn brighter beyond it. We've uncovered the emotional, social, and physical challenges that weigh on the later years. But we've also revealed a path forward, a path lit by hope, movement, purpose, connection, and courage. You are not finished. Your voice still matters. Your light is still glowing, and your presence in this world still makes a difference. So, what part of this message spoke to you most? Was it the call to move your body with intention? The reminder to nourish both your spirit and your cells? Or simply the quiet truth that your story isn't over, not even close? We would love to hear from you. Please take a moment to comment below with one insight you're taking with you, something you plan to live out, starting today, to make your years longer, stronger, and more meaningful. And if this video touched you, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your journey matters, and here at Healthy Aging Blueprint, we're honored to walk it with you, every single step of the way. Wishing you lasting health, deep happiness, and peaceful days ahead. And remember, subscribe to Healthy Aging Blueprint to keep learning, growing, and thriving.